Hello, friends. Hope you're doing good. Just checking in, dropping some ideas with you in case you're interested. Um, Shamans used to do the most outlandish things in order to reach the most pristine states of awareness, and that feeling is left with us. It's just within our. Um, it's in the earth. It's in the genetics. It's deeply encoded in our being. For example, they would bury themselves in burial grounds that were not meant for their dead bodies, but for their living bodies to restore themselves. Because the earth is how shamans reset and heal. The earth is sentient. Although we live in a projected vision, a dream, all the feelings are still as valid as anything. And the earth mother is sentient and offers total connection to those that seek it. And I think that's the greatest secret there is for shamans, is that the Earth Mother really is the only friend we have. They say that death is the only advisor because death is the only one that will tell you the truth. Death is that element in life that will really put things in perspective for you. So it's all good to be fearless and whatnot and not be afraid to die, but there comes a point where you fall in love with this world, even though it's a phantom world. You don't have to remain a phantom. You can become an activated, connected creature, an abstract being, a, a seer. When you start to use your perception to see beyond what the masses see, you become, and you gain access, and you become accessible. Then the wind and the mother, all the elements come to interact with you, to communicate with you, to awaken you, to prepare you for your death, for you to have the most beautiful and powerful death. And there are alternative ways of dying. And I think once you start to get old enough, you realize, as a shaman, as a seeker of knowledge, you start to realize how important how you leave here is. Shamans say that you can leave here in such a unique way that you don't actually lose your awareness, that you don't recycle. And that's a lot of what my channel's about, is about, I believe we're in a time where more and more people are going to have access to that. So the Earth Mother is sentient. She has the capacity to take on your pain and to hold you and to help you to know yourself more. I did put myself in the earth. I dug a grave with a knife this long, and it was a shallow grave, and I put myself in there, and I was in a lot of pain at the time. My girlfriend had died suddenly, Erica, and we had a powerful relationship, but it was very tumultuous and challenging, and her parents didn't want me to be with her because I wasn't a very uh, normal person, and I was, taking her on adventures, and we were making decisions that were probably uh, just considered to be reckless, and they were, but they were also in some respects very necessary. So when I put myself in the earth, the mother really did take all the pain from me. Shamans bury themselves together in groups in a circle, um, and for days at a time, where I just did, like, I didn't bury myself. I just dug a grave, never put anything over myself, just went in to the earth and put my chest on the earth and cried until all the pain in my body came out of me. And then she filled me. And that's the most important thing you have to understand, is that's what I was told about this rite of passage, is you have to stay in there until you feel the Earth Mother fill you back up. Because when you are living off of your pain, that is your fuel. And so if you give your pain away and then you don't get anything back, you won't have any fuel at all. But when I came out of there, I was literally just floating. Shamans are much, this was when I was quite young, but shamans that are very gifted learn to go in there for a long periods of time and restore themselves, and so that they can continue doing the type of dreaming adventures that they had already learned. So it's just an advancement, a means to excel and propel your dreaming artistry. And that's what I am. I'm a dreaming artist. I spend hours every day hanging out inside of feelings. Shamans have learned that this is nothing more than a feeling. We think this is a physical world, but it's not. According to shamans, it's just a feeling, and we have a condition which makes us put a description upon it. And that description is universal in that we are all under the same spell by the same forces that have learned how to draw energy from us. This parasitic force is the top of the food chain. We eat other things, they eat our energy, our luminosity. Unless you become like a shaman that learns to discipline themselves and extract yourself from that way in which typical people behave. And then you develop something called controlled folly. So rather than having folly, you end up having a controlled folly, so that you fit in, you look and appear to be functional and normal. You don't show people how wild and crazy you've become, so that you don't end up in a mental ward. You learn how to hold down normal jobs, you learn how to do all the normal stuff, but you have open doors to perception that would normally be considered schizophrenic. And schizophrenia is simply having access to more than the base feelings and acting on them. And people that my teacher says that all shamans are schizophrenic. It's just that they learned how to trust the process, and they went through from sane through insanity to sober to mature to evolved, right? So you have to be able to have the respect to understand what it's like to lose your normal methodology of function, the way in which you think, right? So shamans stop thinking altogether for long periods of time. They don't talk to themselves, at least not the way that we do. So our internal dialogue is the reason why things appear to be the way they are. But if you were to stop talking to yourself, which can happen when you're on psychedelics, there's too much energetic input, right? So you can't possibly maintain the same conversations that you would with yourself when you're being flooded with all that, all these different elements, these aspects of perception that become suddenly available. I've learned how to navigate power plants very, very well because I'm very much in love with this world. So when things get tricky during a trip, I'm very creative and know how to shift and move energy through dancing, through shamanic movement, through putting myself in the earth, learning to talk with trees, have telepathic communication with animals. All of these things are connected to the mother. So the mother herself, once you get to know her and you learn to use your luminosity, your luminous fibers, we all have the capacity to see and know and feel things from the center of our body, which is called the energetic gap. And there are fibers that extend from that gap, which is basically where your belly button is. For women, it's very much likely different, that you feel everything from your yoni, which makes women much more gifted in the world of shamanism and sorcery, but it's very rare that a woman breaks free from the hive mind altogether, because women tend to not be driven, focused on changing trajectory. They're more accepting, where men tend to have goals that make them want to break free or do particular tasks. So a woman is, although way more gifted in the world of dreaming, um, they're kind of okay with not achieving these things, because they would just be thankful for things to be adventurous and fun and enjoyable, and they just want to you know, not in general, but this is what the Castaneda books say, is that so because women are very susceptible to forces, um, because they have an opening between their legs, they're they're influenced by those forces, and those forces keep them in place and make sure that they don't break free. Where men, being driven to change, those forces end up trying to hijack their ego as they're changing, knowing that there's no way to stop them once they get focused on trying to change. So it's interesting. There's a whole there's a whole deal there. My elder said that the reason we are here is to create a bridge between the two tribes, male and female. And that if we can do that, then we can unify and really resolve this predicament that we're in. And even though it's a predicament, it's a beautiful thing, you know, like what else would we do, right? We're so lucky to be here. And the fact that we do have something that is higher on the food chain than us, um, although that is shocking to most people, once that's understood, it makes sense why the world is the same way it is. This force that arrived here a long time ago and took control of us is the reason why we have skyscrapers, and and why we have the cities the way they're built, and the way, and it's the reason why people are so addicted to money and sex and drugs, is because this force figured out how to find our weakness. It found our weaknesses, and figured out how to hone in and make use of uh, us by giving us its mind, right? So we think the predator's thoughts, and those thoughts are very fear-based, because that predator's afraid of getting caught. It used to be available for us to see, and now you have to really pretty much become a shaman in order to see this force. It projects itself onto this experience that we're in from somewhere, just like we are projecting our experience. Because if you were to go backwards through the stream of consciousness as a dreamer, you'd be able to see that we are in a projection, a vision. And the goal of going backwards through the stream of consciousness is so that you can switch grooves. There's like furrows, and you can go back and make the conscious shift into a different one. Um, to do that, though, would mean that you were prepared to enter an alien world, or not alien, but a world that's occupied by other types of beings, and those beings would suss you out pretty easily if you weren't a stalker, a being that had controlled folly, somebody who was able to match perception of those around you. And that's why shamans go and get normal jobs and learn how to function and do behave as if they were just like anyone else, so that they get used to this capacity to just fit in, to not stand out. Shamans learn how to dull not dull their eye, not dull their power, but dull the shine in their eyes a little bit, so that they don't scare people. Um, they wear a mask of sorts, of sweetness or of intellectuality, or a mask of maybe rebellion, but you kind of have to play a role that's not going to be shocking to the rest of the world. Otherwise, it's just going to be too intense once you have enough energy. Um, the reason why shamans bury themselves or do what called is not doings, like fasting or going without sex, is because it allows them to save their energy to do really cool things in dreams. And I don't mean normal dreams, but the kind of dreams where you enter through a very disciplined means. So at night or at any time, it's easier in the dark, but um, if you're able to hold your if you're able to stay in silence and observe what's right in front of you, you'll start to see colors. It takes a while to get used to because we talk to ourselves and we don't understand how to not talk to ourselves, but these colors unlock and allow you to enter dreams without going to sleep. It's just conscious dreaming, it's lucidity, it's and if you're able to sustain these, what's hard for me is I can access it really easily, but it's so beautiful when I break through that I get so happy and excited that I like, it's overwhelmingly exciting, and I lose the ability to stay there just through the pure joy. Um, and it's enough for me. I'm not needing it to be more than that, so I'm not at odds with where I'm at. But if I had a teacher who was pressing me to push further, he would probably be very frustrated with how I I react. Uh, so that's what shamans say is we have to become detached and indifferent in order to navigate and see energy directly as it flows. The beauty is so profound that's available to a dreamer that you're going to have so much joy run through you that that alone will heal you. So there's just nothing but bliss available for those that have learned to stay in silence. Um, but there's a lot of power hungry people out there who aren't after it for joy. They're out doing it to gain status, power. They want to control others, and they're very driven. It's very intense. Um, and so that's where the shadow work comes in. People that really are willing to face themselves and do the shadow work will discover that they have a lot of undealt with issues from their past. And if you're willing to go back and face those aspects of yourself, then you become a much more well rounded, honest person, and you'll know yourself. And the mother will really, really honor people that do this. The mother is fully sentient and conscious and will see and notice every effort you make. If you think you're not being observed, there's no way you're not. Okay, every action you take is observed. And it doesn't mean you have to be like goody two shoes. Follow your desire. It leads to wanting to be free. Your desire, just because at times it is to do the things that you think are bad or not healthy, it's just you working out your shadow, right? Your desire is your shadow. There's a part of you that needs to to express itself and it doesn't know how to, and it gets mixed into your desire, and that's where the addictions and these things show up. But if you give space for those things and understand why they're so strong, and you're willing to work with mentors or shadow therapists or people that can help you understand what that longing is tied to, it's really based on the fact that you want connection, right? You want love, and love is natural, connection is natural, right? And it doesn't have to be with another person. In fact, the connection to the mother, to the earth, is what can make you whole, so that then you could meet somebody else who has become whole as well. There are some beautiful people in this world that take very good care of themselves, and they choose to be alone because it's very hard to find somebody who does the same. And there's just so much respect for people that are willing to do that, because eventually you will manifest and be guided to people, friends and partners that are on that level with you. So shadow work is it's just a miracle, you know. It's life changing, but it's not something you can do quickly. I'll be doing it for the rest of my life. Um, I'm so fortunate to meet the mother at such a young age because I got into this work at a really young age, and I was celibate, and I didn't even have a sexual thought for a long period of time in my youth. And it just, that energy just developed into something really magical, and I was able to spend a lot of time in the wilderness, um, feeling and knowing and connecting to the way in which the mother guides you. If you're listening when you're in the forest, you'll be shown which direction to go. You'll be told when to stop, and you'll be taught certain movements on how to unlock your energy. Stagnant energy is a lot of the reason why people turn to addiction or distraction, is because they have stagnant energy and they don't know how to move it. Dancing will move your stagnant energy if you know how to truly dance for yourself, not for others. Not, you know, when if you're worried about how other people see you and you're dancing in a particular way and you're limiting yourself, you know. So I dance with my eyes closed, no matter if I'm at a show or alone, typically because it allows me to truly go inward and unlock my energy. The magical passes or in qigong and tai chi and various dreaming arts that teach movement are very, very effective as well as a means to free your energy. uh, the magical passes are so powerful though that they can be too much for people. So like, we were told not to teach them to addicts because they'll get so much energy that they'll feel like they're safe to go and explore their drug use again. Um, and there's an element of truth and danger to that. Um, Shamans don't fuck around, you know. They focus on very basic things, and they don't really distract themselves with much else. Um, and so that's really the core of it, is they've learned how to unlock their perception through gazing, through magical passes, you know, through not doings, which are all, there's all these different ways to utilize your perception. Gazing is a not doing. Um, but yeah, it's basically just, you know, it leads to these not doings, which you can read about in the Castaneda books. They unlock your being so that you can focus again, so you can recapitulate. The recapitulation is so hard to do because the force that is preying on us knows that if we recapitulate, we will break free from its clutches. So shamans create this very specific type of discipline that allows them to not be fed off anymore. And then they can cultivate and build their energy for the rest of their lives without being um, consumed. You do this long enough and you'll be able to start crossing the dreaming gates. And there's nothing like having these dreaming gates become, you know, accessible. It's a very strange and powerful thing to come to terms with. Most people just, this just goes, you know, it's just like, it doesn't, what are you talking about? Like dreaming gates? I know it sounds so strange, but as time goes on, more and more people are going to become interested in this stuff because we are, the collective veil is lifting for many. So, um, how one learns to navigate these feelings that are available to them is through opening your memory up. Your cellular memory is the means for you to become aware of energy that once was accessible and is been, there's kind of been a lid put on it. So how do you go back to your childhood, to your past, to your most favorite or most difficult memories and really hang out in those feelings again? without being pulled right back into this worrying about the future or worrying about the past. Because when you're hanging out in these memories, it's not about worry. It's about reflection, contemplation, really feeling and knowing how your process and how you got here. As a kid, I had full on night terrors and really powerful experiences in the dream realm. Um, and and that gave, as scary as that all was, it gave me a real unique gift, capacity to be able to use dreaming once I discovered the Toltec stuff. Um, but my favorite part of all of it is the recapitulation, and it's usually people's most unfavorite part. It's very uncomfortable to try to recapitulate truly, and so I don't necessarily do the full act of recapitulation. I sort of do something that's pretty enjoyable and pretty light, and I literally have hundreds of memories coming to me every day out of nowhere. I don't even try to recapitulate now, they just show up. And it's because I live a very stress-free life, which I've had to learn how to do, which is, took a lot of tricks. I had to learn how to not care what people think, how to be okay with whatever happens to me at any moment. Even though I am in construction management, which is a high stress job, I've learned how to not take it on. I don't carry that weight. Um, I've learned how to trust my knowing, and I'm very organized and focused, so I'm able to really trust the process. And I always, the same way that I learned how to work with the Earth Mother in the forest and how I was guided, it's the same thing. I just apply it to work. The Earth Mother is a guide. I also have inorganic beings as guides. Erica, who my girlfriend who died, is one of my spirit guides. I have quite a few others as well. So they work with me and help me in tremendous levels, and they show up. They show up, and like Erica shows up in particular colors, like right in front of me. That's when I know, like, she's truly, strong. And it doesn't mean that she's still here amongst us. When somebody dies, because time is not linear, the past, present, and the future are all happening simultaneously. So when someone dies, they can come and visit you, or they can make all these rounds to go and see you at different stages of your future life. And so they they drop in. Um, Shamans say that when a person dies, they get to visit what's called the third attention, which is also known as eternity. And I mean, we are in eternity now. Everything's eternal, right? Um, that is that's what we are. It's just a matter of knowing that. So you have to be able to stop time. It's called stop the world in order to access eternity. But when you do this, the whole thing opens up, and you've had a timeless experience, something beyond comprehension, beyond syntax, they say. And if you can move beyond syntax, then you're no longer having to explain anything to yourself. You've become an abstract being. You've shattered the mirror of self-reflection, and you're now observing energy in a really profound way. It doesn't mean you won't have difficult days, and all your shadow stuff isn't going to surface. We are complicated creatures, and our pettiness is something that is likely to continue to show up every day, or at least quite often throughout our life, as a means to help us just with perspective, to realize how far how much work we still have ahead. Um, so it's a beautiful thing to open that door and be able to feel new feelings, old feelings, to traverse all kinds of feelings. When you learn to feel rather than think, That's where it's at. And you have that capacity. That's the most simple thing you could do, is just, instead of think, feel. Instead of try to meditate, focus on the beautiful, on the beauty. Focus on the sound of the birds. Yeah. um, Focus on the sounds of creation, of nature. Go into the wilderness, lay down, allow these things, or maybe it's your favorite music. But when you're really free of what people think about you, then you're able to do the things that are needed to set yourself free. So freedom happens in stages, and it isn't an easy thing to achieve. And it doesn't mean you need to go and do extreme things in front of others to prove that you've figured this out. It means that you're just listening. You're just listening to what to do, and you're not letting other people interfere with your process. Um, when you first feel the descent of spirit upon your life, you may act a little crazy, may get a little excited, and you may do some things that are a little silly because you're wanting to express and offer gratitude for how happy you are. Yeah, so it's a tricky thing to um, find the balance, to be able to stay functional and keep your job and still open these doors of perception and celebrate your existence in this beautiful way. The shadow work is um, a really huge piece to keep you in check, right? So finding somebody in your life that can help you see the unconscious aspects of your being, and then be willing to consider and listen and learn, and know that is why reading the Castaneda books is so helpful. When you read about Don Juan and Carol Tiggs, and I work with Carol Tiggs, and it's very intense to be around someone who is that aware, and it helps you realize how that you're just very unaware compared to someone who's supremely aware. And even Carol Tiggs has holes in her consciousness that she admits to. Carol Tiggs is the dreaming cohort that helped Carlos Castaneda, and she was also a student of Juan Matus. She's still alive and well to this day. So a lot of people think Carlos Castaneda made stuff up, but or maybe he did. I'm not saying he. I know or not, but Carol Tiggs was a student of Don Juan, and her stories are crazy. Her energy is incredible. When you're around her, it's just like she's just plucking information from the ether. There's just she's not thinking. You can tell that she's not thinking. She's listening. And so that's what I'm wanting to rub off on you guys, is that I want your bodies to pick up on that you don't need to be using your intellect. You have a much more intelligent aspect of your being. you know Use your whole body, your whole entire torus field, to receive and know things. Don't be afraid to feel incredible. It will allow you to tap in to so much more than you've ever tapped into before, and doors of perception will open. Absolutely. Thank you, friends.